All right, I guess I'll start off. So today's Saturday, October 17th, 2015. My name's Osmin Hernandez, and you could just state your name.
My name is Carlos Francisco de Anda.
All right. And if you could just start off, just talking about your family, where did they live before coming to the U.S.? Were they already here? Just a little bit more from
Yeah, I'd be glad to talk to you about my heritage, my lineage. I guess I'm a son of immigrants. My grandparents migrated to the United States in 1910, which was a big war in Mexico, a revolution of the poor rebelling against the haves rebelling against the have-nots. And my grandparents lived in the village of Encarnacion, Jalisco, and they happened to be landowners and entrepreneurs. They had stores and ranch and cattle, and so they were at the wrong end of the political spectrum because it was being attacked by the have-nots, and there was a lot of misfortune going on, killing and raping and lootage to turn over the haves to the have-nots. So they set on a migration that took 3 years to move from inner Mexico with a group of relatives, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunts, uncles, children. And I've never really been able to determine how they got to the United States, but it says, in the oral histories that I've collected, that it took 3 years to get from the interior of Mexico to Laredo, Texas, which was the border and, a sanctuary for them and an opportunity for a new life. So that's where my origins started, from my father's side. They settled there. They were very poor. They didn't have anything to start off with, and they had a large family of 8 brothers and 4 sisters, which were my aunts and uncles on my father's side. And they started and they struggled, and some of them became store owners, entrepreneurs in their own right. Others worked in different careers, and my father was a warehouse manager of a foundry in Laredo, Texas. So I consider myself Mexican American on my father's side because of his lineage from the interior of Mexico. He was a firstborn American citizen, and he married my mother. My mother was already here. She was a Tejana. Her lineage was from Spain. In the 1500s, the King of Spain dominated Texas with different what they call them, estates. No, they didn't call them estates. I'll think of it in a minute. And land grants. He gave Dons the privilege of coming and owning these huge estates, which were called land grants, in what was Texas at that time. And my great-great-grandfather on my mother's side, I'm ninth generation Spanish because of her lineage. So it was an interesting combination of cultures. I always considered myself a Mexican American first because of my father's, but there's a strong lineage to Spain. So it's an interesting combination and a heritage that I leave my children. So Spanish and Hispanic. I didn't speak English when I went to school. I went to school at a Catholic school that's still there. It's called St. Augustine Catholic School. It's by the Cathedral of Laredo, Texas, right on the border, and learned English very well because at that time it was zero tolerance for any language other than English. You were pretty much disciplined physically if you spoke Spanish, so you learn English real quick. So I was raised in Laredo, Texas, and graduated from high school and attended Texas A&M University, which was at that time all male. There were no females at Texas A&M University in Bryan, Texas, and graduated from Texas A&M, and then traveled to North Texas and University of North Texas to work on my master's and graduate degree, and that's where I met my wife and fell in love. And my wife was more determined than I was to continue her education, so I agreed to settle down, raise a family, and keep working, but left my credentials, stopped with a master's degree. We got married and had our first child, and she got her she got her bachelor's degree, we were married, and then we had our first child, and she started working on her master's degree. And then we had our second child, and she continued working for her doctorate degree in bilingual education. So our kids were born wanting to be bilingual. I thought it was going to be real easy to be bilingual, but at that time, there was no support system for bilingual education. There was no bilingual education at that time. The bilingual education started, and I was hired by the 4th Independent School District, and I became the first bilingual evaluator in the state of Texas. The bilingual program was just beginning, and California and Texas were the leaders in implementing bilingual education. California had the other bilingual educator. So it was a very exciting time. We were both young, a lot of energy. Had a beautiful house. We bought a historical house on the south side of Fort Worth, which is beautiful homes with stained glass windows and hardwood floors and wraparound porches and huge pecan trees in the back. We bought that house with our firstborn. We were just married, and led a very active life. My wife continued with her educational degree, and I worked with the 4th Independent School District with a bilingual program, and we made a lot of interesting, formative years of starting the bilingual program, and I was president of the Bilingual Association. We became very involved in the community at a very young age. So we're still here. Our children are now 38, and our son's going to be 37 in October. And they left us with a big house and a lot of room that's full of antiquities, and in a wonderful part of Fort Worth, close to the zoo, close to downtown, close to the mall. The location is just ideal. I really don't want to move, but it's getting to the point where I can't keep up with the maintenance in the backyard and all of that. I just don't want to do it anymore. So it'll be up for the market, hopefully up for market pretty soon. I don't know. And then we'll decide where we move next. So that's sort of a cursory, fast review of where I've been.
Okay. All right. And all right. So as far as your, let's see here. All right. Oh, and you have an attachment here. As far as your involvement and everything growing up, were you involved in any political organizations, social organizations? Okay.
Heavily involved. Very. When you're young like you are, you have a lot of energy, and you don't think about getting enough rest or getting tired or having illnesses. So we were full force. We were heavily involved in the community with different organizations: Image, LULAC, American GI Forum, the Bilingual Association for the 4th Independent School District, in church, very involved in church, and then involved in our children's education. We wanted them to get the best education they could, and also to get the best experience. I came from a meager family. My parents didn't go to college. My father did not complete even high school because his parents were immigrants, and they were all very poor, so they all had to work from the very beginning to make a living. So that was his dream for me to become college educated and have a house bigger than he, better car than he has. So I went to school and graduated and fulfilled his dream, and mine too. Never realized that we were going to have more than he did. It was just a wonderful opportunity to contribute to society. And in getting that education, expanded my experience of what the world was like. Now college education is essential. High school graduation is essential. Now you need a master's degree, not just a bachelor's degree. Or become an entrepreneur. A lot of the wealthiest entrepreneurs don't have an education, so you've got to find your way, see where you fit, where you can contribute the most.
And now, as far as your involvement with LULAC and American GI Forum, what did you do with? What kind of project did you work with them, or what did you?
I was more involved with an American GI Forum,
and
I was an advisor to the president of the local chapter, and we would travel throughout the state and to other states in helping communities, small communities, low-income, high-risk communities where people were didn't have the opportunity for education, we would have meetings in those towns to involve them in the political process, in the voting process, getting them registered, how important voting was, and how important it is to get involved in the community. Because the majority of the community, even now at this time, a lot of the people that come from Mexico at this time, they don't realize the structure and how you have to be involved to create change. So that's what we would do. We would have working seminars on job betterment and education through the American GI Forum. And my heaviest involvement was in the bilingual education program, because that's what my career's been throughout my life. I worked for the Fort Worth in the school district first as a bilingual evaluator, and then I ran a community school. Community schools are still not as prevalent in Texas as they are in other states. But a community school is, you take a school setting like high school, and in the evenings when there's no classes, you offer community-based, non-credit classes for whatever the community wants, what the needs assessment demands. And in the one that I ran, it was very active community, and they wanted Spanish classes, guitar classes, cooking classes, sewing classes, at that time macrame classes, Zumba classes, retirement classes, all these kind of non-profit, non-credit kind of classes. So I ran a community school on the south side that achieved pretty good recognition. There's never been another community school like that. It was called Rosemont Community School, on Rosemont High School on the south side. That was very rewarding. It expanded my network of friends and associates, professionals. I got to meet a spectrum of Caucasian leaders and African American leaders in the community. So that was very enriching. I was offered a position as a principal because the school was going to close because of funding issues, and I didn't want to be a school principal, so I went to work for AT&T Corporation, which to me was more lucrative because they paid much better. They had better investment plans and better retirement plans. So I went to work for them, and it was a good decision. I worked for them for 25 years, and it made it possible for me to retire for the first time when I was about 55, 56 years old because of health issues. I had prostate cancer and diabetes and some other things that were pretty challenging. So I decided to retire from AT&T with a pretty good pension. But the Lord was good, and my prostate cancer is benign since it was diagnosed, and my diabetes and medications well under control. So I got bored of being at home and doing things around the house, and I applied for a job with the city of Fort Worth, and I applied, and I worked for the city of Fort Worth for 10 years as an educational specialist with a unique program that no other city in Texas has. It's called Early Childhood Matters. It's a program for parents that have children 0 to 5 years of age and preparing them and the children for kindergarten. Because preparation is everything, and early education is so essential, and it's only something that the United States has focused on since the 80s, because before then they thought, you gotta wait till the kid's 3, 4 years old, and that was an error, the brain is fast growing. First 3 years is the most rapid growth. Children will learn anything you teach them. Vocabulary, mathematics, science, geographic, all that needs to be taught before they get to kindergarten so they have a better foundation for success and continuation in life. 1/3 of the children that enter kindergarten don't know what a book is, and if they don't know how to read, they're already behind. If they're behind, they're going to stay behind and eventually drop out because the teachers don't have a chance to work with the children that want to learn, so they're left behind. So retired from the city of Fort Worth August the 31st of this year after a 10-year career with them. So now I'm fully retired again. Looking forward to see what's in store for me, what my calling is. I don't plan on staying inactive for very long, but right now I'm really enjoying the solitude and the quiet, and the privilege of not doing anything is really something. Enjoying the time and to do what I want to. First thing, my priority is health. So the first thing I do in the morning is exercise. Go to the park and exercise. And then I have to rush to change and shower and go to work. So I take my time about it, and out in nature underneath a tree, I do some yoga exercises and meditation, and then proceed with health, because we're very, very careful about what we eat. Nutrition is very important. And we do mostly a vegan, natural diet, and that takes time and preparation. Well, now I have the time to juice and to buy fresh things on every 2 or 3 days. So now I have the time for exercise, number 1, nutrition, number 2, and then the last one that I'm going to decide on what to do is, what do I want to do? There's so many things out there, and already I've been asked to volunteer for this. Why don't you apply for this job? I said, no, I don't want anything right now. It's been only 2 months, so I don't know how long I'm going to give myself, maybe till after Christmas. In January, decide how to jump in. Because it will. I believe there's no vacuum in nature. You know, if you clean something else, it's going to be full again. Well, life is the same way. You know, when I have this vacuum, as far as career go, it won't last. It'll be covered up with activities. So I don't want it to become where I'm volunteering in so many places that it's like working. It's like, you know, a job without getting paid, which I don't mind doing, but to a limited extent, not full time. I do want to generate some income. Yeah. I want to skydive before I die. I want to go to Hawaii before I die. My bucket list is it's unfulfilled. Got a lot of stuff in it. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now, let's see here. As far as leaders and organizations that were, like for instance, the American GI Forum, was there anybody, a leader that you looked up to, or that you?
Oh, leaders in the community?
Yeah.
There's plenty that have been as role models. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is a person that hired me fresh out of college. Mm-hmm. His name is Dr. Rudy Rodriguez. He's retired also. He was a fundamental pioneer in bilingual education in City of Fort Worth, Fort Worth Independent School District. Definitely a pioneer, role model. He did so much for not only the school district and the children, but for the population of the city of North Texas. And I look up to him. He instituted the first group of bilingual certified teachers in Texas. That was back in 1970. There were no bilingual teachers. There was no program. But he instituted the first program where he designed the program to graduate certified bilingual teachers in the state of Texas. My wife is one of them. I don't know if you got to interview her or not, but she was the first in a group of bilingual certified teachers. Then he instituted a program for higher education for doctoral students. And if you look back in the history of Fort Worth, a lot of the older, doctorate women that are here, they were, including my wife, Dr. Rangel, Dr. Castañeda, et cetera, group of maybe 20 women in North Texas. They got their doctorate degree because of his efforts and his advocacy for bilingual education. So he's definitely a hero of mine, definitely a role model and a mentor. Then when I started working, of course, when you're fresh out of college, you don't know anything. You think you know everything, but you don't, because you don't have the experience. You've never done community organization. You've never done curriculum writing. You've never done hiring and firing. You've never done all of the things I've never done. And I was very fortunate when I was offered the opportunity to develop and grow Rosemont Community School, which was nobody had ever done that before. I mean, I didn't know what a community school was, but I wanted the job. And I got the job, and I had to develop that from the scratch, curriculums, hiring courses. And I had some training. The director of the program that hired me, his name is Eddie Herrera. He's no longer here. He was a community activist. He was a professional in organizing the community for voting and for education. So he gave me a lot of the guidance. And when I fielded the field for my assistant for that program, we hired 60 people. It was I don't recall the budget, but it was a pretty hefty budget. You have to have a good accountant and a good director. The woman that applied for the directorship is a leader and a mover in the city of Fort Worth from way back, 1973. She was already a leader, and she was applying for a position under me, who had no experience. She had a lot of money, came from influential circles, and I was stunned. I said, this is who I want. but I was a little bit intimidated. How do you hire somebody of this prestige? So I put up my hands. I said, well, I'll give it a shot. So I hired her. And both of us working together were dynamic because she had all the connections. She had the influence. And I had the knowledge and was flexible enough to learn how to put this excellent program together. So she's another mentor that taught me a lot about community organization, respect, people come first. And if you don't serve the people, then you're not a good leader. So she was already a leader, so I modeled after her style, her way of thinking, and we made a very successful program. Her name is Joan Klein. She's still alive. She's a matriarch of the South Side. She has some. Are you familiar with the South Side? There's a street called Elizabeth Boulevard, where at the founding of the city, the leaders used to be there, the bankers, the oilers, the cattle owners lived on this boulevard called Elizabeth Boulevard, and her house was the first house ever built there, so she goes way back in the community. She was a leader. Then I've had leaders that I worked with, leaders in the community that I'm friends now, because I came at the time when it was an emerging role. New people were coming in, new leaders were. There was the old leaders that were here that made it possible for me to succeed. They're gone. Sam Garcia, Manuel Jara, Mr. Lara. There was a group of maybe 10, 12 Mexican, Hispanic leaders that were here burning the bushes, making it possible for us. Well, those are the people that I'm hanging around with now, but we're leaving. I mean, we're 70s, and some of them died. So those leaders were Manuel Valdez, the first Hispanic judge. Carlos Puentes was the first Hispanic school board member. Luis Zapata was the first Hispanic city council person. We now have a new first Hispanic superintendent, and it's taken that long. Jacinto Ramos, not too much older than you are. He's our first Hispanic school board member. So we need to keep that movement going, and that's what I probably will contribute to the most. Help other people, young people like you that have the initiative, and put them on the right track. I think I'm proud to say that I helped Jacinto get to where he's at, because I worked for his campaign, and he already had the leadership abilities. He just needed to be put in the right place. So that's going to be my mission, is to continue to encourage other people to do what we've done, because we have so much to do. I think we've come a long way, and then you realize, wow, we still have so much further to go. Now with the immigration, the way it is, a lot of the people that are coming are uneducated. That doesn't mean they're dumb. They're hardworking, honest people. They just need to be educated to the fact that they need to vote. They need to register. They need to become citizens. They need to learn English. So it's a huge, because we have thousands. When I came to Fort Worth, I'm not sure. Now, the school that I taught at, 99% Hispanics. 75% of them immigrants from Mexico, with no education, hardworking, honest people, and that's the new crop that needs to be, put on track, because we are already almost the largest minority. I think we are the largest minority in the state of Texas and in other states. So it's just a matter of education. My career as an educator will not end. Plus, I have a granddaughter that I hopefully educate in the right direction. So the journey keeps going. It never ends.
Yeah. All right. Now, with community organizations and everything, did you collaborate with any other ethnic groups like African Americans in the city?
Yeah, we have. I've always been a believer in a democratic, in non-ethnocentric. I'm Hispanic, very proud to be Hispanic, but I don't, we're all the same. We all have tremendous capabilities, and if you don't have a team, then it's hard, you're sort of defeating the purpose. So with the Caucasian community, it's easy. I mean, they're the majority. They're the leaders and the movers. Always work well with them. And with the African American community, it's always been an effort to unite with them, because together we can move a mountain, whereas we work against each other. So it's always been an effort to work with the African American community, and I continue to do that. There's several organizations. The Black and Brown Coalition is active right now. We have a new police chief. He's the first African American police chief in the city of Fort Worth. I met him when he came for his press conference. So I already have a connection with him, and I want to plan to keep on working with him to include diversity in the community. And interesting perspective is also the Asian community. There's a lot of Asian people here, and in general, the Asian people are more focused on education and financial freedom than other. So they're very smart. I'd like to work with them too and get them involved. And there's a Muslim nation that I'm just beginning to, off the surface, realize that there's a lot of Muslims here, with their mosques and their way of living. So I'll continue to explore avenues to work together, because this next election is going to be crucial, and we need to get people to vote for whoever they want to vote. I'm not going to tell them who, but I'm going to tell them to register and be ready, because that's the way the country works, is on politics. I'm going to slow down. I am slowed down already, but I'll keep active in the community.
All right. Well, I guess we could find a stopping point here, and I'm gonna appreciate your time again.